waiting to see what transpires, not just if it's going to happen, but if it's going to happen on time, or if not, when it's going to happen. All that stuff, we're still talking about it on a regular basis each and every night. Joining us now to talk about it a little bit, about his program, is a guy that has a distinguishing characteristic. Look, he's got a lot of those because he's been doing this for a long time, and he's done a great job everywhere he's been, as an assistant at Archbishop Shaw, as a head coach at Holy Cross, as a head coach at Archbishop Shaw, as an assistant at Jesuit, now as the interim head coach at Jesuit as well. That distinction would be the first guy to be a head coach at 3 Catholic League schools. I guess it just means you're getting old. No, I'm just kidding. It means you're pretty good. My friend Scott Bairnsfather of the Jesuit Blue Jays joining me now. All right, Scott, you've probably heard that one a few times before, right?
Yeah, and I just kind of feel it is that I'm getting old.
Well, I got news for you, my friend. If you're getting old, then I'm certifiably old. So let's just put that to bed right now. Now, first and foremost, congratulations, because, look, it's a great opportunity. It's an outstanding school, great tradition. You've worked there the last few years. I know you've enjoyed your time there. Now it's a unique challenge because Mark Sonja decided he wanted to go into administration. And while there may have been, a little bit of a rumbling or two about that, it's not something you could have expected when it transpired.
No, certainly not at the time that it transpired. The COVID problems, it manifested itself in our disciplinarian deciding, well, now it's time for me to retire. He'd been at the school a long time. Top Abshai was, amongst the 3 schools I was at, he's just a terrific disciplinarian. And I know there's always, like you said, there's been rumblings about Mark moving into that direction, but none of us thought it would be right now. But it happened. And they chose Mark as the next disciplinarian, which left a void obvious void in the coaching of football. And looks like I drew the short straw and am going to take the team through the season. And, with only Scott Bairnsfather has the luck that he takes the interim head coaching job in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah, brilliant strategy on your part, man.
Yeah.
Listen, when you talk about the 3 schools and the 3 situations you walked into, they're not totally dissimilar. Holy Cross was not a start over, but a rebuild, and you did a great job doing that, and came within a hair of beating an undefeated Rummel team in Chalmette, as I recall, with a really good football team, and lost to Evangel, of course, in the playoffs in other years, and then, of course, at Archbishop Shaw. And look, we can talk about it now. A very unfortunate circumstance because a legendary coach left, a guy you worked for and learned under, and that was a difficult circumstance because he did an incredible job and built an incredible program, and things weren't good when he left because it didn't happen on the best of terms, and as a result, you kind of had to start over there. And then, of course, at Jesuit, you're in a situation now where it's not a start over, it's not a rebuild, it's somewhere in between, if I'm reading this correct. Help me out.
That's probably pretty accurate. The other 2 jobs I took over, I basically had to change a lot of things. They were, Holy Cross I was just a lot different coming in there than what they were doing at the time. And so there was obvious changes, there was obvious coaching staff changes. Same thing happened at Shaw. Basically, the whole coaching staff left. I came in and had to make a lot of coaching staff changes. There was a lot of turnover on the team. So both were kind of rebuilding or starting over points. But at Jesuit, things at Mark had it going pretty fluidly. We've been pretty good. We haven't been dominant, but we've been very competitive, and the program is intact, so to speak. So I'm just trying to keep it going. Obviously, the biggest problem is COVID, but it's not like I have to, not like I'm coming in here, particularly on an interim basis, and making a whole lot of changes and making a whole lot of different calls with the players and with the assistant coaches. I'm trying to just keep it going and make it as smooth as possible transition into the season.
You were coaching against them in 2014, and you saw what they were capable of doing. And, and winning a state championship. In fact, you were, when they beat Rummel in the semifinals that year, you were doing a broadcast for us. And that was pretty much an indication of how good they were. I mean, they beat Rummel and Curtis back-to-back to win a state championship.
Yeah, in fact,
and
I did.
That,
I was on the radio.
That
with
tells
the
you what they're
game.
capable of.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it's not. It maybe Jesuit can be that, particularly in today's world where we're literally playing each other in the playoffs, or we're playing each other in the regular season games, where with the split in the state, that any team that gets a hot year or a hot couple of years can really do some damage in the playoffs. You saw, Rummel last year was absolutely lights out. Where it would have been hard for anybody in the state to beat them, but any other team in any other year, particularly with the split, can catch fire and go deep into the playoffs and really have a chance. And Jesuit showed that in 2014. Very well coached team, a lot of maybe not great players, a couple of great players, but a lot of very good players that we would love to have right now. With our young team that we have coming back, they had a lot of experience, much like Rummel did last year. They had a lot of guys that played multiple years, much like Rummel did last year, and it worked out for Jesuit, and they did a terrific job in winning the state championship.
Scott Bairnsfather with us from the Jesuit Blue Jays. And Scott, you lose a bunch of linemen, which is, of course, that's been a staple of Jesuit's program for many years now. They've always been not only able to compete up front, but they've been as good, if not better, than the best teams up front. It's always been about whether or not they have quite enough difference makers, in the so-called skill spots. But you kind of have to rebuild up front this year as well, but you have maybe a little skill. Talk about that.
Yeah, we are up front on both sides. We got hit with graduation. So we actually graduated all 9 starters, from offensive line to the defensive line. All of our guys, and they were really good. I mean, it was a group that played multiple years. They were a good group on both sides of the ball, and now we kind of rebuilding right there. This will be the first time on the line since I've been at Jesuit that I could actually say we're going to be young on both sides. We don't have a lot of seniors playing on either side of the line. Now, our skill, we're pretty good at linebacker, so our mid-skill linebacker area, we got some returning starters, and they're good players. Secondary is going to be a little young. It's going to be a little inexperienced there, but where we do have experience is the receiver spot. We are, I would say, a lot of teams would like to have our players at receiver that we're going to play against. We have a lot of talent at the spot, and we're pretty deep at the spot. We probably have 6 guys that can get in the game and be effective at receiver, which is a good thing, and I think we're going to be pretty good at quarterback, whoever plays. The biggest issue for us, Ken, and I'm sure everybody else is in the same boat, was the lack of spring training. We got position battles in some of these spots we're talking about that haven't been fought yet. These battles haven't been fought because we had no spring, and we've been basically just working out and doing off-season type stuff. We haven't had a chance for kids to get out on the practice field and prove that they belong as a starter over someone else. And, all that's going to have to shake out once we get into phase 18 or whatever we're supposed to be before we can actually hit each other, in football.
I got it, man. You mentioned quarterback. You had a really good one last year. And that kid I thought was extremely talented, did a great job, going to a prominent academic institution now. But you do like your quarterback position this year. You said you have 2 guys.
I got 2 guys,
play, right?
And it's another point. That was going to be a battle in the spring, which didn't come to fruition. But I got 2 guys that I'm pretty confident in. That both, although inexperienced, they didn't take snaps, a lot of snaps. They took JV snaps and along the way, but not a lot of varsity snaps for either one of them. But are both very capable. Grant Jordan was, one of the best quarterbacks in the city last year, who, like you said, is going to Yale to play quarterback. He was one of the best guys in the city, and that was his only year starting at quarterback. So, I feel the same way about the 2 guys, Luke LaForge and Jack Lariviere, that I have, who have the capability of being as good as anybody, particularly with our strength at receiver.
Yeah, it's important to have somebody that can play at the most important position, so that's a real plus. And then, of course, the other the other reason Jesuit hasn't ascended to any high level in the last few years has been because they're in a really tough league with some just outstanding teams and in some cases elite teams, and that certainly makes the path difficult.
No, we feel it particularly. We played a really good Hornville team last year, Week 9, and we beat them up pretty good. But in our league, in Hornville, was the second best team in their league that they play in, which is a really good league. That got us about third or fourth place in our league. It's just really tough to play Curtis when Rummel has a team like they had last year. Brother Martin's consistently good year in and year out, and they do a consistently good job no matter who they have, whether they got returning starters or not. They do a really good job of being competitive no matter what. And St. Aug's always very talented, and St. Aug, as you know, last year had a chance to beat Rummel, who, like I said, I didn't know anybody could beat that. Anybody I thought could beat them. Particularly when Curtis didn't beat them. So St. Aug had a chance to beat them. So the league is really tough. Our team last year was really good, and we won 6 games. So I think that team could have won a lot of games in a lot of other leagues.
I agree, and I think that's part of the issue. And then, of course, finally, the playoff format stinks. It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm just tired of seeing a lot of these games. There was a period where Rummel and Jesuit play like 6 times in 3 years.
Yeah.
We've seen Rummel Catholic 3 straight times. We've seen John Curtis and Catholic 3 straight times. It's just getting old when you see these matchups over and over again. And you mentioned Rummel. Yeah, they had to beat St. Augustine a second time and barely survived, and then they had to beat Brother Martin again just to get
absolutely
to a championship game. And it's so unfair to these kids, isn't it?
It is, Ken. And honestly, if you're Rummel, you were happy to see Catholic. Even though Catholic is a great program and a great team, you finally get to see someone you hadn't, been against. For us, we played Shaw and then Curtis in the playoffs last year. We beat Shaw, but again, you're playing them for the second time, so it's not a comfortable feeling. Even though you beat them pretty good both times, but it's really not comfortable. Then you go and we play Curtis. Curtis, obviously their program speaks for itself, but on any given day, us being probably a double-digit underdog against Curtis, we had a chance to beat Curtis in the playoffs. If we just played for the first time like it should be in the playoffs, those things don't happen. Where you're so familiar, if you're on the winning side of that in the beginning, you don't really want to face the team the second time, particularly only 2 or 3 weeks after you faced them the first time. It's not good. I don't think it's good for the kids. I think it's better for the kids to see other schools. I think it's better for the kids to travel more, particularly in the playoffs in the second and third round, where you could be going to Shreveport, you could be going to Central Louisiana, you could be going to the Lafayette area. Those are good experiences for all of our players that right now, the way it's set up for our leagues and for the select schools, we're not having that. The farthest we can really go, besides, I guess, Bird, but you only got 1 out of 10 chance of playing them, is Catholic. You go to Baton Rouge. Everything else is in the city. We don't travel. We don't do anything.
Yeah, you got Catholic and Scotlandville, and then you got St. Paul's, and that's it.
So, but we play every year too. At Jesuit, we play St. Paul's every year. So it's almost like a league game for us.
I might want to talk to your scheduling person about that.
Yeah, I'm not real sure that. I'm not real sure.
Yeah, because
our scheduling doesn't need another assistant.
Yeah, I mean they're a good program and they're good people to play, but when there's a real decent chance you're going to see them again, it might impact thoughts. And I know that was the case with Rummel and Catholic. They used to scrimmage every year, and they stopped doing that.
Right.
In fact, the year Catholic beat Rummel in the Dome and upset them with Clyde Edwards-Helaire on a last-second field goal, they'd scrimmaged in August, and Rummel destroyed them, just wiped them out, and they were probably a little bit overconfident. And after that year, they stopped scrimmaging each other because they knew that this is probably going to be a regular thing. And guess what? They were right.
Yeah. Every year.
Right.
Curtis still scrimmages St. Paul's. There's still a lot of old habits that are hard to break. so to speak. But but we see so much of each other. I would love to see somebody who doesn't know anything about us. We don't know anything about them, and you watch a couple
Sure.
of games on film and you prepare for a game like we used to. Now that doesn't happen. We play teams in the playoffs. We've already seen hours and hours of film of them. We know everything about each other. It's a little less enjoyable.
Yep. Final thought. I mean, interim tag, 1 year, or would you plan on doing this long term, or would you think about it down the road? Do you have a mindset about that yet?
I don't have a mindset about it, and my mindset right now is I am the interim coach. I was honored for them to ask, being only there. I've only been there 3 years, so but I was the guy on the staff that had some experience coaching, particularly in the league and being a head coach. They have a lot of other guys on our staff that could certainly do the job, and I'm sure will be applying for the job in the future, amongst others. So I think the school really wants to open the job up and see what's out there, and make it a process, and see. I'm sure that they'll make the right decision and come up with the best coach for the future for Jesuit.
So well stated. Kind of like you've been doing this for a while. Yeah, I think you've done it for a while and done it very well. Scott Bairnsfather, Jesuit High School, thank you so much for the time. Listen, nothing but the best to you. We continue to pray for Amy, and looking forward to seeing you on the football field sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, Ken, thank you here, and I appreciate your thoughts for my wife as always. And I look forward to talking to you as the season goes on.
My pleasure, my friend. Scott Bairnsfather,
Okay.
Jesuit High School.